Hey, how's it going, everybody? Lawler here. Got an interesting video to talk about today, and actually an unfortunate one because of what the situation is about. For those that don't know, obviously there's a lot of moving parts when it comes to a professional broadcast, and in this case, just the esports scene in general. There's a lot of things behind the scenes that we don't really get to listen about or hear from or talk to. And in this circumstance, we're going to be talking about one of those people. I've done a video about unsung heroes of Rocket League Esports in the past, people that don't get credit for the amount of work that they put in. And to put it into perspective, in the 6 years that I've been involved in Rocket League and Rocket League Esports, there are two people that, when it comes to tournament organization, admin work, making sure things run smoothly when it comes to the tournament, there's 2 to 3 people that I trust blindly. People that I can say, hey, if I need something set up and done correctly for formats and brackets and all these types of things, 2 to 3 people in the entire scene that I will just go, yeah, without a doubt, they'll take care of it. And unfortunately, we're losing one of them, Furtive Raccoon. If you guys don't know Furtive Raccoon, he's been involved for a multitude of years, since pretty much the beginning, and has run various events like the Grid Overtime, Gold Rush Lands, Rocket League Summits, Beyond the Summit, DreamHack Boost Cups, and a bunch of others, as well as helping out alongside RLCS related things as well. If you've ever been to like PAX East, West, South, whatever, DreamHacks, etc., there's a good chance that you've either seen Furtive or haven't, because he's too busy running around trying to make stuff happen. We're going to be talking about his situation, and it provides a lot of insight about the value Psyonix holds towards some of the positions for the people that they hire. Hey, how's it going, everybody? Lawler here, inside source for all things Rocket League. Going to be talking about a specific post, as I mentioned in the intro, talking about Furtive Raccoon, a longtime back-end support person, trying to explain that in layman's terms. But as he stated, he has worked behind the curtains. We're going to be talking through his tweet longer, talking about the importance, providing my own thoughts and opinions on it, and why this is such a big deal, because quite honestly, it is a pretty big loss. I don't think people realize how big of a deal this is, because this is essentially the job that he's been busting his butt for years, if he wants to be in the Rocket League scene with his expertise, and it just falls short. So we're going to go through this line by line, kind of talk, break it apart, get into the details, and provide our own opinions. So it starts off, dear Rocket League Esports community, it's been an unforgettable 6 years behind the curtains of many of your favorite events and broadcasts that I listed in the intro. He talks about how he's managed shapes and projects of all sizes, crafted all sorts of formats and schedules, created who knows how many Smash.gg pages and tournament Discord servers, etc., etc. Questions about registration, game lobbies, tons of things with admin calls, and worked on a lot of creative roles like calling the shots on the production side of things, and coming up with the vision of Renaissance Ruckus. Most recently, supported and encouraged others running their own events. I can tell you firsthand, he has helped me with things like setting up Smash GG pages and registration options for the Brawl, has helped with admin calls and a bunch of other things. And I know I'm not the only one. He's been doing it for a ton of other people. He says, I constantly put forth my best efforts as a positive ambassador for the esport, whether it's professional and dependable way I conduct myself, players, teams, coaches, managers, uplift and lead fellow staff, reach out and welcome tournament organizers and orgs when they enter the scene, regularly pull back the curtain for folks in the community on Reddit and Twitter, gas up other people's projects, work in secure, safe environment for all people in this game, and promote and applaud professionalism around our esport. I'm proud of the positive impact he's had, which I can agree. There's a lot of things that would not happen in this esport if it was not for Furtive Raccoon. There's a lot of people that we talk about. If we go back and look at the history of Rocket League Esports, these are the names that most people will not mention, because they are not a forward-facing figure. They are not someone that has a massive social media following. This is not a person that is on camera all the time or talks in interviews and all that kind of stuff. This is a person that keeps their head down, works hard, and makes things happen. And without Furtive and some of the other people that I'm going to name, CJ Link, D-Pants, etc., things don't get done. And we don't have a functioning event to enjoy, which we will get to later as a comparison that he brings up, which is a really good point. So why is this all happening? What is the situation? Let's provide some context to what is going on, which he details perfectly. Says, why would I leave? Well, the long story short is that he's 28. I have to look out for myself financially, and I was able to come to agreeable terms with ESL and Psyonix for RLCS 11, which we finally have confirmation that it is going to happen. This is technically the first time through confirmation that RLCS 11 will actually happen. Because as of right now, it's been pure speculation. For those that don't know, Psyonix obviously is the developer behind Rocket League. ESL is a production partner in pairing with DreamHack. ESL DreamHack, same company now. They're the ones in charge of the production side of things for RLCS. Also, the budgeting side of things is somewhat of a collaboration between the two of them, according to Furtive. When Rocket League came out in 2015, he was still finishing up college and volunteering his time to run LAN tournaments out of his garage, and now does freelance in esports for his livelihood. To provide context to that, he has a skill set that is very valuable in the esports demographic, whether it be tournament organization, adminning, etc., all the stuff I mentioned earlier. And companies, production companies and otherwise, will hire him to do those roles. That is what he does freelance full time. Freelance, as someone like myself, it is a very difficult career because if work isn't happening or there's no events due to COVID or whatever it may be, it can be very scary. There's a lot of risk when it comes to job security in the space. He says candidly that he has been making more money, more comfortable, and earning a living better in other esports and projects outside of the RLCS and Rocket League in general, whether it be Valorant, Overwatch, whatever project he's working on. Things have been going quite well as a freelance rather than dedicating to just Rocket League. He has continued to work with Rocket League Esports largely because he loves the game and the people within it, but goodwill can only extend so far. Throughout RLCS X, lowballing wasn't an absolute deal breaker because I was day rating. And what he means is rather than be getting paid a dedicated salary or a flat sum, he is getting paid for his work per day. When he was offered $250 a day or $300 a day working on RLCS regional majors and championships, when he makes double that, if not more, on other esports projects for similar work. So imagine doing something you're passionate about for half the price because, one, you care about the project, and two, you hope it leads to an opportunity possibly in the future. Even though he knows he can go and spend other time and effort in other projects where he makes double the money. He was always able to batch specific dates here and there, which allowed him to not only organize and kind of have an expectation set, but it's also consistent work, which is always something that's really important for freelance. Yes, he says it stung that some of the roles were compensated to $2,000+ a day in comparison to his $250 to $300 a day, while the essential tournament staff were tossed some half-chewed-on morsels, but it was a pill I could swallow because, again, I made most of my living working on other esports projects, implying that Rocket League is more of a passion thing. With RLCS approaching, he said he was approached by ESL/Psyonix to take on a far more ambitious exclusive role. Exclusivity meaning that he would not be able to do freelance anymore. The jobs that were paying him more, he's no longer allowed to do. He is going to be specific to RLCS, and what that is, quote, managing all RLCS competitions for the North America region with some additional and significant responsibilities outside of the RLCS itself. No longer would I be running game lobbies. Instead, I would be responsible for the overall product of each RLCS competition, staffing them up, heavily planning and standardizing excellent experiences, and overseeing the live executions, a set of responsibilities which I often carry on projects outside of the RLCS. The role would be a 12-month, full-time contract commitment and a paid salary as opposed to a per-day rate. That can go back and forth. If you're really good at freelance, there is a chance for you to make infinitely more money than being dedicated to a salary where you may work even longer hours and longer days, but because you're under a salary, they can get away with it. Then hopefully your raise at the end of the year is worth it. This role was and still is exciting to me, and I would have loved to tackle such an impactful opportunity with all my weight thrown behind it. Again, passion project, still doing it despite the lower pay, still would love to do it as it is very enticing. It's pretty much like I stated at the beginning, where you want to go. You want to become this type of role for a successful esport, because who knows what kind of power and opportunities and what special touches or what kind of things you can use to affect the outcome long term. The ability to craft and create unique ideas to shape and make RLCS bigger and better than it's ever been. So Furtive says that he was overjoyed when they approached him, especially because I had received zero communication between RLCS X championships and the beginning of August. They even described to me all the ways that I was specifically a great fit for the role, which I agree. Based on Furtive's work ethic and everything else he's done in the past, the tournaments I've seen and ran with him, he does a phenomenal job. There is not many other people I would recommend for the position other than some of the people I mentioned earlier in the video. The problem is the amount they offered me for these responsibilities in terms was unacceptably low. And this is some insight into the way things operate and what I think Psyonix sees when it comes to the esport, and might explain a lot of the reasons for stagnation or lack of communication or other things like the Rocket League Esports team not having enough help. There is 5-6 people on that staff, all wearing multiple hats. It makes it very difficult for things to become fully fleshed out, and it leads to a trickle-down effect of lack of communication, lack of innovation, and a lot of other things that you may see when you look at it on a grand scale. To be vague, it was under 60,000 with no benefits and no room for freelancing. So he's telling me he has to cut out all of his freelancing that pays more. You're lowballing him in pay. If he's going to work for Psyonix, he's probably going to have to move to San Diego, where the average cost of living per month is probably around like $18,000, $20,000 a year. So a third of his salary. This doesn't include that he has no benefits and the fact that he's got to pay for healthcare and everything else himself out of pocket. And that's just the start. He also then adds, secondly, I make more than $60,000 a year freelancing right now with far less than a full-time workload. Not to say that a dollar figure is everything. I've made $90,000 plus benefits before in a non-esports full-time job, and I hated it. It's all a balance of effort, stress, time commitment, fulfillment, and pay. And I'm happy with the balance in my freelance life today. So again, it's an opportunity cost. You can either go work for Psyonix, make less money, and do it as a full-time career. Who knows what it may lead to? Or you can continue to do freelance, have some freedoms, do what you're doing now, and still make more. Pretty obvious to me what he's going to do. I can tell you guys from personal experience, I was offered a similar position with way less responsibilities here where I live in Green Bay, Wisconsin. For those that don't know, the cost of living in the Midwest, primarily Wisconsin, is stupid cheap. And even I, in a position similar to this, with like, if I had to equate it to a number, 1/6 of the responsibilities I assume he would be doing, maybe 1/10 of the responsibilities, I was offered $65,000 a year, full insurance, dental, everything in Wisconsin. This is a 6-figure position minimum, especially in a place like San Diego. It's a highly sought after role, as well as a very much so needed role in an esports world. It's the bread and butter. It's what makes everything happen smoothly behind the scenes. Because if this stuff goes well, it allows everything else to be successful as well. He then states, when considering a full-time contract for RLCS and sacrificing my freelance life, I figured it was time for me to either make an all-sustainable home in Rocket League that makes sense financially, or to move on. And with that, I decided to negotiate for an amount where I think I could be happy giving it my all full-time to the RLCS. To me, this role is a 6-figure kind of job. 100%. Totally agree with you there, Furtive. Where you need to consistently be an absolute rock star in every category through high-stakes execution after high-stakes execution. It is. It's a very demanding job. It is a job that does not sleep when everybody else checks out. You are constantly working on the next thing. And I don't think people realize that. This is something that I hope Furtive could actually detail what goes on in a typical event weekend leading up to the event, all the prep that goes into it, as well as day of. You would be baffled by the amount of work that multiple people are doing at a very low rate in competition. Now, some of you may say like, yeah, $200, $300 a day, that's incredible, but it's also the entertainment industry and it's a very sought after thing. There's a lot of different reasons as to why they make what they do. Also, it's affecting hundreds of thousands of people who are watching the broadcast. It goes hand in hand. So when he says a 6-figure position, I agree. It is 100% fully capable of paying that kind of money for something that is so important to making sure the everyday stuff goes smoothly, which allows you then to further enable everybody else that is involved, whether it be broadcast talent, the players, the people behind the scenes, admin. Like, it's so important for this stuff to go right. It's a very important position. What I attempted to negotiate for wasn't 6 figures. It wasn't even for 90K. Still, I was unsuccessful. So they continued to, despite him knowing, hey, this is a 6-figure position, I'm even gonna undercut that, and they're still not going to meet me even halfway remotely. To be exceedingly clear, I reasonably exhausted my avenues on communication on this matter. I would not share this publicly if I felt there were any possible unintentional mistake in the manner that was settled. Psyonix and ESL offered me exactly what they meant to. So 60,000, less than 60,000. That's where we're going. That's what we want. We're not going to budge on it, even though I provide all these reasons as to why, with exclusivity and all these other reasons, you guys can't even meet me halfway, and they still say, nah, this is what we're going to do. Because of that, this happens. I'm sad that Rocket League Esports, the official brand, not the community, was unwilling to compensate me at this level, and consequently, he's going to be moving on, which is a massive loss for this community. Clearly, the relevant heads for this esport do not validate me and my work, especially with the initial offer. It's kind of insulting. Surprising, because we've seen what happens when top-tier, high-stakes competitions are operated by people who don't have the Rocket League skill set, experience, and know-how. See the Intel World Open. Exactly what I mentioned in the beginning. You look at the difference between stuff like the Search by Beasley Esports. You look at Intel World Open. Intel World Open is only best of threes, super long qualifiers on one day, no seeding whatsoever for any team, even though you can clearly look at professionals teaming up together versus otherwise. And yes, we may not have results of what it's like for three people from the same country to play together, but we have an understanding that that's going to go significantly better than a bunch of diamond players that won't even show up and disqualify. You're wasting these people's times. This stuff makes a difference. When you've got players that are waiting for 5 hours in the lower bracket and they leave because it's not worth the time, you're not getting the best possible competition for an event that you're putting $250,000 into, and it just falls apart and no one cares, and all that money you spent, all that time you spent is now wasted when you could just hire someone like Furtive who knows what the heck he's doing, pay him what he's due, and then have an event that's actually successful that leads to long-term success and everybody else actually being excited about it. Because we look at the Intel World Open, the way it was handled, and it's like, it's a crapshoot. It looked terrible. It was horribly ran. But then you look at something like Beasley Esports, who are putting on an event to find a next Rocket League team. Format's incredible, runs super smooth, no hiccups over the course of a month plus. And it's like, yeah, part of the reason why that, and most of the reason why that goes smoothly, is because the time, preparation, and love that it's given by people behind the scenes that most of us don't get to hear about. Furtive states this is a critical management role in producing the most important experiences of Rocket League Esports, and yet they lowballed me twice, as if I were a first-timer applying for a dime a dozen opportunity. The thing that makes me most upset about this is they approached him. They said, you're perfect for this role, we really like what you do, and we're gonna laugh in your face with this lowball territory. You can look at other positions in the industry and see how much they're valued at, and we're still gonna give you probably less than half of what the position is. So Furtive comes in and says, hey, this is where I would like to be, and you still say no. To me, that says a lot about the inner workings of how things operate towards this esport, and it frustrates the hell out of me. Not only on behalf of Furtive, but also just the other people I know that are involved with this, that are not being given the time, love, and dedication that is needed to make this esport a tier 1 esport, to make this the biggest game in the world. And it frustrates the out of me. Furtive says it stings a bit. As I mentioned before, some roles on RLCS competitions are very well compensated, and good for them. This isn't a zero-sum game. What I demanded, in my opinion, barely constituted being reasonably compensated, which is hardly much to ask in exchange for a full-time commitment of the currently most qualified person on planet Earth to fill this role and carry out its responsibilities with pride and gusto. And there is some emotion coming through in this, and I can understand Furtive. You told him, like I just said, he's perfect for the position, all this kind of stuff, and then you lowball him despite saying he's perfect for the position. As he stated confidently, the most qualified person for the position. If this is the peak of all opportunities for his line of work in the RLCS, and I'm still valued this little, then why continue climbing on this mountain? Why continue to put this passion and effort into something if you're going to continue to diminish my efforts? I'm already on some of them, and I'll keep happily climbing there. Rightfully so. He says he's getting better compensated in other places, and yes, he may not be as passionate about them as he has Rocket League, and sorry if I'm misconstruing your words, Furtive, but I know how much time and effort and love you put into Rocket League. I've seen you do it for 6 years, and I'm pissed off for you, man. Like, this is ridiculous. He then ends in the end that, is it likely for him to disappear? Very few of the people in the post ever do, myself included. Even though I was let go of the RLCS's commentary team, I'm still involved in the scene because I love and I'm passionate about this game. And luckily, because of the people who watch these videos, I'm able to earn a living so I can continue to do so. But for his circumstance, yes, he'll still play. Yes, he'll still tune into the broadcast. But at this point, you're going to have to find somebody else. Hopefully, he still has the ability to interact and help out with certain projects that are passionate, things like Rocket League Summit and everything else. But he will not be contributing to the esport the same way that he has been for the past 6 years. And he'll be reinvesting that time and effort into other esports in his own life, which, bravo for you, Furtive. I commend you heavily on the decision making because I'm sure it's a tough one. You've been busting your ass for the past 6 years. You finally get offered the position of what you've been working towards, and they just laugh in your face. Pretty much is what it feels like. They lowball you. They don't value the efforts that you've put in, and to you, you gotta move on. And I get it, and it sucks. He says in his final statements, okay, but in all seriousness, do what makes you happy. I'm not going to demand that anyone else becomes soured and unhappy about RLCS just because my experiences. RLCS 11 will hopefully still be awesome. And in my heart of hearts, I think Rocket League will one day become a tier 1 esport. But I sincerely hope it builds that future on the backs of well-paid, passionate workers instead of the alternative. So compensate your tournament staff well, please. GG's and be well, Furtive. it goes to show where Psyonix holds value in positions. It feels like they much rather take the cheaper route rather than paying people that are what they're owed or what they're due because of the experience and the expertise that they bring to the space. It's crazy how it still doesn't add up to some people. You have someone that is perfectly qualified for a position that's been doing it day in and day out for 6 years, and rather than giving him what he's due so he can continue to do the thing that you sought after him for, you much rather just say, not worth it, and go with somebody else. And it sucks because this isn't the first time this has happened. Being honest, for those that are still watching that have made it this far, I greatly appreciate it. Sorry if I've misconstrued any words from Furtive. At this point, I don't know what else to say. Furtive nails it on the head, and it continues to emphasize some of the frustrations that I have about the internal workings of Psyonix, and I'm glad he's able to provide his own experience from it as well, because I know I'm not the only one. I've seen this happen, like I mentioned, multiple times to other people, and it sucks. Something's got to give at Psyonix, and sometimes that does have to do with money and paying people who are perfect for positions, well experienced, people that you sought after, so they can continue to make esports thrive. And then even better yet, when you do hire them, empower them, give them the ability to go and make those decisions before you shut down their ideas and their creativity. And it'd be crazy to see what actually happens to Rocket League esports as a whole. I don't know what else to say or do in this situation, and I appreciate you all for making it this far. If you have watched, as always, let me know in the comments down below. Let me know what your guys' thoughts, experiences, personal opinions are on the situation. Is this something that doesn't come to a surprise? Is this something that's shocked? Is this something that you wish you knew more about? Let me know in the comments down below. And again, massive thank you to Furtive on behalf of myself and the community for sharing this stuff on a personal level, because this stuff is not always something that seems the light of day, but it's well spoken and well written, as always, from Furtive, who is always a consummate professional in the scene, that I've had the pleasure to work with at numerous events and alongside at other things outside of Rocket League, and it still remains the same. So Furtive, nothing but the success for you, man, moving forward in your future. I know you as a freelancer are going to absolutely kill it because you've been doing it for how many years already, and now you have one less thing that is holding you back. So Furtive, I expect to see you dominating some other esports scene in the same position in a moment's notice. If you guys enjoyed this content, as always, it is greatly appreciated. Comment, like, subscribe down below. Turn on notifications so you don't miss out on anything. And I will see you in the next video. Peace.